You're going to find the Ioniq 6 available with either 18 or 20-inch wheels, depending on how you have the vehicle configured. This is the preferred trim level, so you are looking at 20-inch wheels. Drivetrain-wise, the vehicle is available either rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. When you go for that all-wheel drive setup, you've got that dual motor. It kicks the power up a notch and a half. It's amazing. Whether you go for rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, though, it's going to depend on where you live. Because if you're in southern states where you may not ever see snow, rear-wheel drive is going to give you better range. But all-wheel drive, if you live in northern states or in Canada like me, you're going to get snow 4 to 6 months out of the year. So having all-wheel drive versus rear-wheel drive is an absolute lifesaver once snow starts hitting the ground. I've really come to appreciate the styling that Hyundai has in a lot of their newer vehicles, especially when you get into their electric lineup. The Ioniq 6 is no exception. The LED headlamps in the vehicle look stunning, and they're wrapped with this nice black bezel that follows all the way throughout the lamp. Moving down, the forward sensing system also has a nice highlight, so it's a glossy highlight that follows through different parts of the bumper too. There's so much technology that you're going to find inside of Hyundai vehicles, and the Ioniq 6 is no exception. When you look at something like the preferred trim level with the Ultimate Pack in Canada, or the limited trim down in the States, you're going to have things like the front-facing camera, the side-mounted cameras, and that backup camera for a full 360 view. Right inside of the cluster screen, you can also use the turn stalk going left or right for the blind spot view monitor to actually show up. There's a head-up display, highway driving assist with lane change assist, and so many other incredible features, including park assist. Not just the remote smart parking assistant, but full-on active park assist. It's amazing. Underneath the hood of the Ioniq 6, you're not going to find too much. There's a tiny little storage trunk, tiered storage tray that's available there. It gets covered off when the hood is closed, and then outside of that, a few small things you're going to have to worry about when it comes to maintenance. Windshield wiper fluid off to the left side. And that's really about it. Warranty-wise in the Hyundai world, it's pretty appealing. Basic warranty and the powertrain warranty in Canada, it's a 5-year, 100,000 kilometers for coverage. Down in the States, your basic starts at 5-year, 60,000 mile. The powertrain gets moved up to a 10-year, 100,000 mile instead, which is amazing. And then the EV hybrid components are covered for 8 years, 160,000 kilometers, 100,000 miles. Just make sure that you're maintaining your vehicle, which for electrics means that you're pretty much looking at windshield wiper fluid, tires, brakes, and that's really about it. I really like the rear end styling of the Ioniq 6. Just the way that things bubble together, they come together so nicely. Love it. The spoiler along the top, the Hyundai badge there look great, but the lamps inside the vehicle are amazing. I love the way that Hyundai's done it in the Ioniq 6. You're going to find the same little black bezel in the back end that we found in the front, and that shoots all the way across. And that glossy highlight follows throughout the bumper on top of that. You're going to find the rear sensing system standard along with the backup camera. And then there are a few different ways that you can get into the trunk. You can use the Keyfob to do it. There's a button just to the left-hand side of the steering wheel. The Ioniq 6 also has the smart trunk feature. So as long as you've got the fob on you, you get 15 feet away for about 10 to 15 seconds, walk up to the back, automatically pops open. It's amazing. And then just to the right-hand side of the backup camera, there's a button there that you can push in order to get into the trunk instead. And when I first popped this trunk open, I was surprised at how much space is actually back here. But feature-wise, there isn't really much. There's nothing really off to the right side, nothing off to the left side. And then this is just the regular carpeted liner, but sliding it back, you've also got the tire mobility kit, so the inflator goop, and then there's also a 20-foot charge cable that comes with the vehicle too. And the charge cable that comes with the vehicle is strictly a level 1. So the level 1 charging does take a while. It's just a regular wall plug, which is nice. But to go from 0 to 100, you're like 70 plus hours. It takes quite a long time in order to actually charge up. I mentioned that there's also the mobility kit in the back. Now, The mobility kit is just the goop and then the actual inflator. So if you ever pop a tire, one of the nice things about being a Hyundai owner is that you have access to roadside assistance. And that's good for 5 years, unlimited mileage, whether you're in Canada or the States. And that's good for things like tire changing, lockout services, winching, if the EV's died and you need a boost, or if you need to get towed to a charge station. That is available as an option, which I think is very useful. Would be good to see a mini spare, but I don't think I've ever come across an EV with a mini spare tire, but you at least have those other options available to you if you need them. And folding down the second row seats is done partway through the trunk and then on the second row too. So there are some release levers along both the left and the right side. So you're just going to pull, and then in the second row, just going to drop the seat. And it's a 40-60 bench split. So it's 40% on the driver's side and 60% on the passenger side. There's a little lip separating the back, but I mean, the overall cargo dimensions inside the vehicle, amazing. And the cargo measurements that you're looking at, specifically for depth, they're going from right where the trunk would close to just in behind the armrest between the first row seats. So if the driver's seat, passenger seat are plus or minus, you're gonna gain or lose a few extra inches just depending on how far forward those seats are. But still, if you need the space, the boot in the Ioniq 6 has you covered. Charging for the Ioniq 6 is done just along the passenger side. So there's a button you push in order to open up the charge door. There's also a button just to the left-hand side of the steering wheel for you to open and close it. The Ioniq 6 does support level 1, level 2, and level 3 DC supercharging, but the charge times are all over the place. So the vehicle does come with a level 1 charger from the factory, 20-foot cable, but level 1 charging in any electric is a long process. Level 1 trickle charge, you're up to 74, 76 plus hours to go from 0 to 100%. It takes a long time. And then level 2, depending on what your charge rate is, it can also be anywhere between 5 hours on the low end to 12 plus hours on the high end to go again from 0 to 100. And then you've got DC supercharging, which if you go for 350 kilowatt, if that's available, you can charge up in like 18 minutes. So the question of, I guess even is it worth it to get a home charging station is going to depend on you. Because if you're only driving 10, 20 kilometers or like 15 to 20 miles a day, level 1 is probably okay because you can just plug in at home, or if work has a charger, plug in that way instead if it's available. Home charging stations would be useful if you're putting on like 40 to, well, I'd say maybe 40 plus kilometers per day. That's 100% when it would make sense to do a home charging station. This is luckily my second electric vehicle that I've done a longer review on. And the first one, a little bit of range anxiety. I guess it's actually technically charging anxiety. But I found out that my gym has a charging station within a 3-minute walk, which is amazing. So I plug in, it was only like a 6 kilowatt though, so 6 kilowatt hour, so it was a fairly slow charge. But in the hour and change between me going there, plugging in, walking to the gym, working out and back, it would charge up 10 to 15% at a time and cost like $2 to do it, which I mean is pretty dang cheap all at the same time. The overall range that you get inside of the Ioniq 6 is going to depend on if you're in the 53 kilowatt hour battery or the 77.4. So you're gonna have way more range inside of the 77.4 over the 53. You're gonna have better range rear wheel drive compared to all wheel drive. So there are a lot of things you have to look at. But range minimum, you're looking at 240 miles or about 386 kilometers. And then you're maxing out at 361 miles or 581 kilometer range. But like I said, the overall range that you get is going to depend on the trim level of the vehicle that you're in and whether you're rear wheel versus all wheel drive. Because all the extra stuff that you put into the vehicle, like the preferred with the ultimate package or the limited trim, is going to have a net weight, and that's going to effectively negatively impact your overall range. So that's something you have to consider when you're purchasing an EV. The Ioniq 6 is a low-profile sedan, and the overall styling had my jaw dropping when I went to go pick it up. It might have had something to do with that matte paint, though, which I do think looks stunning. Pricing-wise, inside of the Ioniq 6, in Canada, we're starting off at around $57,600. In the States, you're $38,600. And that's before you look at incentives. So I'm in Ontario, which means we're looking at a federal rebate of up to $5,000. Down in the States, you've got up to $7,500, and then other options depending on what state you live in. As you approach the Ioniq 6, as long as you've got the key fob on you, look at that. Beautiful. But you saw there, so the side view mirrors are power folding. They have turn signals, they're heated, they've got the blind spot monitoring system, and this one also has a side mounted camera. I'll show you the usefulness of that in just a second. But I like how the handles just pop open beautifully. Now the door inside of the Ioniq 6 is unique. So first thing I'm going to point out, you've got your handle, but there's also seat memory. I'll show you how the seat memory works in just a second, but you've also got this nice Bose sound system. So the speaker here is amazing, and it takes up so much of the door that they had to move the window controls onto the inside there. So a little storage tray there, and then you've got this Ioniq 6 badge along the side. On the inside, you've also got your hood release, I guess to get in for your frunk, or if you wanted to top up your wiper fluid. Up top, you can increase or decrease the brightness of the cluster screen. There's the electronic parking brake. You can open and close the charge door from the inside, open and close the trunk from the inside, turn off traction stability control, and then you've also got your option for power folding side view mirrors, and then your side view mirror controls are down here too. That one caught me off guard the first time I hopped in. I was like, how do I adjust the side view? It's down there. The steering wheel is going to be a manual telescoping across the entire lineup. And that seat, leatherette, which is nice. There are a few different materials available, so it's either going to be cloth or this synthetic leather, depending on the trim level of the vehicle that you're in. But the seat, you can adjust it forwards, backwards, up and down. You adjust the backrest, and then there's also two-way lumbar support on top of that. But let's hop inside and next up, taking a peek at the steering wheel as well as the cluster screen inside of the Ioniq 6. First thing I gotta say, the steering wheel inside the vehicle is fantastic. It's also heated, so you can toggle the heated steering wheel on. There's a button down the center stack there. You can push that in order to get to some other options, and you might just be able to see it there. There we go. So the option for turning on the heated steering wheel. And it's heated pretty much all the way around. The steering wheel inside of the Ioniq 6 is going to be manual telescoping, so just by your left knee, there's a release there to go in, out, up, and down as necessary. Once you find that perfect position for you, click it in order to lock it back into place. Oh, I gotta say, I love the highlights here. So unique. I'll explain these ones in just a second, but first thing I'm going to point out, stick on the left-hand side. You got the option of jumping between all of your different light modes. So typically I would recommend always being in the auto mode. And the big reason why is because the vehicle is going to turn on your daytime or nighttime running lamps, just depending on how bright it is outside. So your regular headlamps. If you're in the always on mode, it's going to have the lights always on instead, or you could just toggle them off if you wanted to. Auto mode is the way to go for sure. There is one thing about the auto mode though, and that's that you can't permanently lock your high beams out. When you do that, it's going to go into the auto mode. So what that means is that if the vehicle recognizes the high beams are needed, it's going to turn them on automatically. If there's somebody oncoming, it's going to dim them before turning them right back on again. But you could always flash your high beams out that way instead if you wanted to. But if you go into the light always on option, you could push away in order to turn your high beams on automatically, or pull in towards you to turn them off instead. So you've got that available as an option if you wanted to use it. Using the left turn stalk, you've also got the blind spot view monitor. So it utilizes those side mounted cameras in order to show you what's going on right next to you. Stick on this side is going to be for your wipers. So you've got an option of adjusting out to your different options there. So high, low, or auto mode. And then there's this little switch in the middle there. And that lets you go when you're in the auto mode between how fast or slow are you going for that wiper fluid, or for the wipers, I should say. And then you're going to pull in towards you to get that front windshield wiper fluid going. The shifter down here is kind of neat too. So you've got your drive, neutral, reverse, into park. The vehicle has paddle shifters too. So it's going to be your plus on the left-hand side and your minus on the right-hand side. These are not traditional paddles though. So you can see there, you're dropping between different levels. So level 0, the best way I can explain that, I think internal combustion engine. So you take your foot off the accelerator and the vehicle slows down pretty gradually, versus if you're in level 3 or push again for the I-pedal drive, which is one pedal driving. And that slows you down very rapidly. You take your foot off the accelerator and you slow down really, really quickly. It's almost like you don't really need to use your brake. You should still have your foot hovering over that pedal just in case, but it's not necessary at the same time. So it's pretty cool that you've got that option available. From there, you've got a series of other buttons, including your drive mode. So you can push the button there in order to jump between different available drive modes. But look at this. As you move through the different modes, it also changes up the color on the steering wheel and inside of the cluster. So you want to be in the eco mode, your green, versus normal mode is blue, versus your sport mode is red. And as you adjust through, you can see there it's automatically going to adjust your total miles that you get too, because when you're in the sport mode, or when you're in the eco mode here, you get the max number of kilometers. So your speed, when you speed up, it's going to be very gradual. Versus you're in your sport mode, you put your foot down and you are flying. Amazing. Honestly, what I find is sport mode on regular city streets is the way to go. And then either eco or normal on the highway is amazing because you get really good economy at the same time when you do it that way. You've got a series of different buttons along the outside. So with a phone connected, you can either answer or hang up on a phone call. You've then got the option of adjusting your volume this way. You can push in the middle to mute. You've got a voice command prompt. So you'll be able to do things like change songs, radio stations, navigate using your voice. If you were hooked up over Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, you could do a longer press and hold in order to activate either your Google or your Siri assistant. Then there are two different mode buttons there, or two different custom buttons, I should say. So mode button lets you change between all of your available station or sources, I should say. So AM, FM, Sirius XM, etc. You can set that up through the infotainment system. And then there's the little star icon there, which lets you do a few other things. So you can see there, when I push that button, it gave me the option of adjusting a few things. So there's a button down the center stack that's custom. Then there are two unique steering wheel buttons. So for your steering wheel mode, do you want to change between all of these different options versus the custom button? What do you want it to do? So you can really kind of customize this and really make it your own if you wanted to. And then you've got this button, and that's to go between all of your different options there. So you can see there for media, we're jumping up and down between presets. If you're on AM, FM, or even Sirius XM, you can do a press and hold in order to seek out instead. So it's not the most intuitive seek. You have to go up and down a few times and kind of take your finger off the trigger fairly quickly if you wanted to jump finely between a station. But honestly, just doing this, tune to 97.7 FM. I mean, that is the way to go instead. So yeah, you could go old school and kind of flip up and down between your different presets if you wanted to, but using your voice is amazing. And then you've got a series of buttons along the outside, along the left. So this one is to toggle on your cruise control. So you can see there, smart cruise conditions are not met because I'm stationary. As you start to drive, you can turn it on, and then you can then go plus in order to set your speed and then either increase or decrease 1 kilometer or 1 mile per hour at a time. You can push there in order to cancel or resume. You can hit the brake in order to cancel it as well, and then you push up to resume. This is a distance indicator. So how close or far are you away from the vehicle that's in front of you? Actually, I think, yeah, it's not gonna let me do that there. Oh well, but if you want to walk through on how this actually works, you can find an actual walkthrough video of using the adaptive cruise or smart cruise control in person. It's a very straightforward system. One thing to note is that you can't switch out to traditional cruise. So it's essentially either adaptive or bust. But honestly, once you get the hang of the adaptive cruise, it is a really, really useful system at the same time. And then there's also this one, which is a lane centering system or lane follow assist. So it's not fully self-driving because you have to keep your hands on the steering wheel, but with the adaptive cruise control system going, and this one keeps you perfectly balanced in your lane, it is a really, really cool system at the same time. And then you've got this little pages button to jump you between a few different options inside of the cluster. So next up, let's go through a few different options inside of that screen. Starting off, let me talk you through everything. We're ready to drive. You've got your current battery percentage level. Your current battery just displayed slightly differently, which level you're in. So whether that's level 1, 2, 3, or 0, or your I-pedal, so your one pedal driving. What drive mode you're currently in. So you can see there, eco versus sport versus normal mode. Jump between all those options. Outside temperatures there. your current torque. So as you go to floor it, lets you know what amount of torque that you're currently using. Your current odometer, whether or not the parking brake is turned on, and that's just down by your knee. So left knee there, you can toggle your parking brake on or off. It's useful. And then from there, there's also your current kilometers to empty or miles to empty, your current vehicle speed as you're driving, and then whether you're in drive, neutral, reverse, which is so cool, or back into park. But I love that. So as you go through, you can see in your reverse what's going on all the way around you. So you've got your full sensors set up there. And then even inside of the infotainment system, as you go around, so cool. Shows you what's going on all the way around you. It's really, really neat. And then back to park again. And then you've got a few individual pages. So let's go through the different pages. And all I'm doing is using the little scroll wheel along the side here in order to go between all of the sub settings. So if we go to any of these other options, actually, let's obviously start off at the beginning there. So you can see it says press OK for settings. So you push and hold OK, and that gets you through to a number of different settings inside of the infotainment system. There are two that make sense for us to go through, and that's going to be the head-up display. So inside of the head-up display here, let me raise you up so you can, there we go. You can see that head-up display there. So you've got your current head-up display, and what do you want to do for it? So you've got the flexibility of either moving it up or down through the infotainment system. You can rotate, you can adjust the brightness, and then what do you want showing up? So there's turn-by-turn directions there. So if you had a map going, that would show up. Driving convenience settings, blind spot safety, so if somebody's entered the blind spot in the vehicle, and then your radio and media information as well. So it's very useful. But let's say if we had, let's go map inside of the screen here and search for an address. And let's just go nice and Canadian of me, Tim Hortons, and select and set. And start. Watch this.
Guidance will start now.
There we go. So it tells us turn-by-turn directions right inside of the head-up display, which is so cool. Easily cancel the route out from there. So I love that you've got the flexibility to see what's going on with the route inside of the cluster screen. And then as we go back through to our different settings there, the other setting that we wanted to look at would be your cluster. So cluster, you can adjust the brightness there if you want to, turn on a blue light filter, but you've got theme selection. So we're currently in sport mode inside of the cluster screen right now. But if you were to jump out into one of the other modes, so let's say if you went into the eco mode versus sport mode versus, it changes it out. But let's say if you love the look of the sport mode, but you love the functionality of the eco mode, you've got the flexibility to adjust it that way, or just link it back out to your cluster instead. Which content do you want showing up there? And then do you want it playing a welcome sound when you go to turn the vehicle on? Pretty neat. But back to the little cluster there. And we've got a few other pages to go through. So as we hit the little pages icon there, that jumps us between this. So you've essentially got your trip counters. So you've got your drive info, and that's from since the vehicle was last turned off and then turned back on again. Since you've recharged the vehicle, what's your current odometer reading? And then your total accumulated info instead. And any of these things you can reset. So once you're on any of the pages, you just push and hold OK in order to reset it instead. So push and hold OK after recharge, and it zeroed it out. So you've got the flexibility to do it. So as I mentioned, drive info is since the vehicle is turned on, after charging, since you've charged up, and then your total accumulated info. So since you've last done a reset there. So think of that one as like your trip one counter instead. Hitting the page button, if you've got an active route, it shows you right inside of the screen there as well. And then you've also got your basic info. So you've got tire pressure, which is not going to show until you start driving. And then it's the same thing with this little display. So it's going to show you which wheel is getting which amount of power. If you're locked into rear wheel drive or dynamic, it's going to automatically adjust there as you go. Seat's really comfortable inside this ride. And hold on, spacing wise, yeah, let's go down. Okay, so that's as far down as it's going to go. And up overhead with me sitting fully upright, it's a little tight out to the side. 3.5-3-ish inches of headspace there. But obviously you recline the seat backwards if you're a little bit taller, but still the amount of space inside the vehicle is great. Yeah, the seat comfort is definitely there too. Taking a peek at the infotainment system inside of the Hyundai Ioniq 6. This is the only screen size that you're going to find available inside the vehicle, and really responsive there. But you've got factory navigation in the vehicle, Android Auto, Apple CarPlay support, and a number of other features. So let's dive in. I'm going to show you everything that you need to know. First thing to point out is that this is typically the home screen that you're going to be met with when the vehicle's first turned on. I kind of love the layout, the way that Hyundai's done this. So you've got your current date, time, if you're listening to a radio station, your current battery level, your current range based off of what driving mode that you're in. So it's going to be dynamic based off of eco mode, normal mode versus sport mode, which I love. And then if you've got your climate engaged, but I'll dive into those settings in just a second. And then you've got your basic map. And that's kind of like a nice ghosted view of where you roughly are, which is kind of neat. But swiping across along the top, you've got this button in order to jump into different user profiles. So you've got driver 1, and this is essentially the driver that I've currently set up. You can link it with your BlueLink account on your cell phone if you wanted to. And then you can also link it to your existing Keyfob. And then you can easily change the user this way. So if you've got multiple people driving the vehicle, you can easily switch out drivers that way and set your languages. The benefit of having unique profiles set up is that you'd be able to do things like set up your different maps, so of your navigation routes. You can set up your phone, you can set up your presets, so AM, FM, Sirius, XM, things like that. And it's going to remember it based off of the user profile that you set up here. So if multiple people are driving the vehicle, you can easily adjust it out. You do technically only have the option for 2, I guess, technically 3 different users, because you've got driver 1, driver 2, and then the guest account there as well. So you've got a few different options that are available. You've got your home button along the very top, this button in order to turn the display off. So if you find this too distracting, you can turn it off. Button press to bring it back to life again. You can edit the home icons as well. So if you don't like the overall layout, you can just do a drag and drop in order to customize this and really make it your own. If you've played around with it too much and you're not a fan, you can hit reset in order to bring it back to the factory default layout there instead. You've got this in order to get to the digital owner's manual. So you just pull up your phone, scan the QR code there, and it's going to pull up a digital owner's manual for you instead. The current time, date, your connection status, and then this is an option for wireless charging. So if you've got a phone on the wireless charger, it's going to pop up there. If the phone's off, you see there, it's gone, and back on the wireless charge pad again. So it's kind of nice that you've got something letting you know that you do have a phone that's wirelessly charging. But I mean, so many options. Starting off on the EV side of things. So as of right now, you can see what current range is on the vehicle with climate on versus if you turn the climate off instead. You can see how that adjusts things out. It's actually kind of neat. I love the way that it does this. And then again, as you jump between your different drive modes, it's going to effectively change how much range you're going to get total. You can push this button in order to see where in the world you are. Kind of a neat look. Back into your EV mode. And then you've got a few options along the very bottom here. So departure times are available. So departure times set. So let's set this up. Where the departure times come into play is essentially working on preconditioning your vehicle. So if you leave the same time every day, you want your vehicle warm, cold, whatever the case may be, you can set up a unique time. So let's say if you leave at 7 o'clock in the morning, Monday to Friday, perfect. So we've got that one set up. So if we hop back now, we've got our departure time where we would typically take off. And then you can also schedule charging and schedule your climate. And then clicking through, you can set your charge times. So let's say if you know you're going to get cheap electricity from 7 o'clock p.m., or sorry, from 8 o'clock p.m. until 6 o'clock a.m. You can set it up that way. You can prioritize off-peak charging. You can only charge during off-peak hours as well. So if you only want to charge up when you're going to get the cheapest electricity rates, that's available. But you can also toggle it off if you want to. This one is going to be for your climate settings. So earlier in the morning, if you want things to be nice and cool when you get into your vehicle, you can set that up. If you're in the wintertime, you want to precondition nice and warm with your windshield defroster going, you've got the flexibility to be able to do that as well. So when you're plugged in, the vehicle essentially is going to precondition the cabin for you. And a big benefit of being plugged in to do that is that you're not unnecessarily wasting the electricity. And you can see there, both of those are off. But if we turn them back on and schedule, you can see they're back on there again. So pretty useful. And then there's also something called V2L. So vehicle to load, which essentially means that you're able to use the vehicle as a big battery. So you can plug things in, laptops, chargers, and things like that if you wanted to use this for camping, etc. And then what do you want to be able to use it down until? So if you're glamping and you want to be able to use the battery in the vehicle to charge some things until you hit 40%, 30%, etc., you've got the flexibility to be able to do it. And then pushing the gear icon lets you do a few things. DC charging, you technically should only go up to about 80%. You can go to 100, but the fast charging ideally is 80. And then even just regular day-to-day driving, unless you're going to be using the charge the next day, I'd say either 80 or 90% maximum is all you really need to worry about. But you've got different options available there. Charging current. So if you're plugged in and you're finding that there are issues, so it's not charging up properly or you're running into any sort of charge issue, this can happen. So if the charging current's different, go reduced. And what you'll find is that if you go reduced or minimum, it's going to work for any charge station that you use. I have found that some chargers, the AC charging doesn't work properly unless you're on the reduced current instead. Battery conditioning mode is useful for wintertime driving. You can activate your utility mode, so that V2L mode. Regenerative braking, you've got a few different options that are available. So there are 3 unique setups there. You can utilize the paddle shifters in order to jump between all of the available options as well, including the iPedal or the one-pedal drive. There's the charging connector also, which you can always lock if you want to. Only lock while charging or do not lock. I always recommend just making sure that you're always locked there. And a big benefit is that if you're locked, you go to lock the vehicle, you're essentially going to be locked in for the charger. So people just can't unplug to be dicks because you're charging your EV. You're charging prompts on the outside. So when you actually go to plug the vehicle in, you're going to get a little prompt outside letting you know that your essentially charging has started. And you can set whether or not you get that warning whatsoever, or do you want the voice to be high, medium, or low. And then plug and charge for different stations. But that's the basics of using the electric vehicle, so the EV settings. You could go fuller screen as well if you wanted to. So just by pushing that icon along the very side. And you can go up and down between different options. That's kind of neat that are available. Moving back home, next up is maps. So you've got a few different ways that you can get to it. So you can swipe across to map, but right down the center stack, there are also a few buttons. So there's map, navigation, media, and a few others. But in the map now, you can change your heading out if you want to. Straightforward. Whether or not you get the voice or sound effects. So when you're coming to an upcoming turn, do you want it to tell you that you have to turn? Or do you want to just get an effect letting you know? Hold on, listen.
Guidance will be at this volume.
So versus, I'm personally a bigger fan of just having the sound effects, but that one's going to be a matter of preference. And then lowering volume. So if you've got your radio cranked and you're coming to an upcoming turn, it's going to lower that volume so you can hear what's going on. You can then plus or minus this way if you wanted to zoom in or out, or just do a pinch to zoom there instead if you wanted to. You can have it in the auto mode. What the auto mode means is it's automatically going to zoom in or zoom out depending on how close you are to your end destination if you're using navigation. And then very similar to the last screen, we can also go full screen map instead. Pushing the menu button, you can see what's nearby. So point of interest icons, categories. You want to show off your total EV range there as well, which is kind of neat because you can see where you can currently drive based off of how charged up you are. Display your traffic info, toggle the display off on that one. That's kind of a random one. And from there, let's go search. So you can search for different addresses very simply. So you can search by GPS coordinates, latitude first, longitude second. You can start typing in an address if you want to, or you can search by a point of interest icon. So nice and Canadian of me, let's go to Tim Hortons. You can see there, so many options. All right, let's just pick one. And you can see best route versus distance. Okay, perfect. And we've got the one that we've selected, so we can set as a destination. Let's deactivate this. No. Perfect. And we've got 2 different routes to get there. So you can see which routes are currently available, along with the time that it's going to take in order to get there. You can start guidance, add in a waypoint, or avoid certain things on your route. So if you wanted to avoid ferries, toll roads, carpool lanes, you've got the flexibility to do it. Adding in a waypoint's a neat one, because let's say if you wanted to stop somewhere first, you wanted to maybe stop at a gas station and laugh at the people that are filling up, you've got the flexibility to do it. So what we've done is we've added a waypoint in between. So you've got your end destination, and then a waypoint is everything in between. So if you're going on a longer distance trip, you can kind of set it up as you go. And then one cool thing is that it's also going to take your total charge into account as well. So it's going to let you know whether or not you can make the trip, or if you'll have to make a stop. But same idea, you've got your different routes that are available, and then start guidance.
Guidance will start now.
Perfect. And you can see the total route that you're taking on top of that. So it is kind of nice, but I mean, it's kind of cool. I like that. So you kind of got that little split view instead if you want to. That's what I was looking for. Perfect. So you can see your simple versus rest areas versus available details as well. So this is the total route that you're going to be taking in order to get to where you want to go. So based off of the total route that you want. Now, one other nice thing is that inside of the head-up display, if you've got a route going, it's also going to show you the route that you need to take. So as you kind of zoom in there, you can see that you've got your turn-by-turn directions there, vehicle speed, and a few other things. So very useful if you wanted to utilize that head-up display too, which you can toggle on or off, but I'll show you that one in a minute. You can easily cancel the route out there. You can see route is now canceled. And then if you go back in and search, you've got previous destinations. So we've been to that Tim Hortons. If you wanted to go back, you can just do a button press there in order to get to all of your previous destinations. And there are a series of other options that are available for navigation, which actually, I wonder if we go back home, that might even be next. Yeah, navigation menu. And search for addresses, point of interest icons, saved places, previous destinations, etc. So you can see all the options that you've been to. You can then delete previous destinations on top of that. Perfect, and that one's gone. And back. You can look at different Hyundai dealerships, and then if you had a route going, you've got a few different options available. You can set up your home and your work address. And the big benefit of doing that is that you can push the voice command prompt on the steering wheel, and then you'd be able to say navigate home, navigate to work, and it's going to navigate to whatever addresses you have saved. Then next up is going to be adding in a phone.
Turn Bluetooth on from your device in order to search. On your device, select the name that matches vehicle name on the screen.
Going to start off on the iPhone side of things. So you've got Ioniq 6. Pins match up. Perfect. Do I want to allow access to, do I want contacts and favorites to sync up? This is not my car, so I'm going to say don't allow to that one, but I'm fully connected. You can see the current phone there. You've got dial pad that said unavailable.
Download was unsuccessful.
So it said unsuccessful because I selected no on the phone. But I mean, obviously, if this is your car, you would probably say yes. You've got your iPhone name along the bottom, your connection status level, and then your current battery level on top of that. Then you can easily dial in if you'd like to. And as always, you can go to your little split screen there instead. Now, you do have the option to go Android Auto, Apple CarPlay in the vehicle, but it is a wired connection. So if you wanted to use it, you just have to make sure that you have a USB cable with a little data icon there. It's not going to work otherwise. So if you just have a charge cable, you do need a data only one, and it's only the USB-A port. So next to the wireless charge pad, you're just going to plug yourself in, opposite end of the cable, plugging yourself in there, and it should. Do you want to allow CarPlay while the phone is locked? Yes, you want to allow that. Otherwise, when you're locked, it wouldn't work. But look at this, nice and simple, full screen. Look at how beautiful that looks. Oh, damn, that's nice. All right, so along the outside there, you've got your current time, your connection level, which map was open last, which audio application was open last, which miscellaneous application was open last. Then you can push this to get to an icon view or to this home screen, and then you can swipe across in order to go between all of these other options instead. There are so many apps that are available. But Google Maps, Apple Maps, and Waze on the iPhone side of things all work the same. So there's no pinch to zoom capabilities. You have to go in and out this way in order to be able to zoom in or out. You can have it focus on you, 3D option. You can search for addresses, look at previous destinations. Google Maps is the same thing. So you hop into Google Maps, you can search for addresses. You could then jump between route options. So if you wanted to avoid highways, toll roads, and ferries, you've got that option. Change your map colors. You can adjust volume, show live traffic. And then Waze is the same idea. I typically always use Waze. I love it. Great features. And the big reason why is because you've got the flexibility of marking things on the map as you go. So if you notice that there are police on the route, if there's a crash, hazards, block lane, and things like that. And then as you're driving, as always, plus or minus this way, it's going to show you. So hold on, somebody's marked a cop up there. So you can see what's going on. And then just done, you can search for addresses. And one nice thing, on the steering wheel, there's a voice command prompt that you can push. So a single button press, like a short one, just launches your factory assistant. But if you do a longer press and hold, that activates your Siri assistant instead. So you'll be able to search for addresses, you could play songs and all of your Siri capabilities using that instead. Useful. And then audio, so many options. You've got podcasts that are available inside the vehicle. There is the option for Hoopla, which is a library app, Live One. Like there are a ton of different options that are available. So if you're a bigger fan of listening to certain apps, you've got the flexibility to be able to do it. There's one thing though, and even though like something like VLC, it works for audio, but you can't actually play video back through this screen. It's like, one thing that I'd love to see is the flexibility to do that, but it doesn't matter which app you install through CarPlay, you're not getting video playback whatsoever. But I mean, the screen is nice. That's good. Now on the iPhone, if you jump into your general settings, go CarPlay, find your vehicle, you can forget the car, you can customize the launcher, and then allow CarPlay while locked. So you can toggle that on or off. But if you go to customize, let's say if you're a bigger fan of your podcasts and you love using Waze. So you can do a drag and drop in order to adjust the screen out, or you can remove any of the apps available as well that have the minus button next to it. So it fully removes them from the vehicle, but they're saved, so you could add them back in if you really wanted to. If you've played around with the layout too much and you're not a fan of what you've done, there's a reset button on the phone top right. You can press that, reset screen, and that brings you back to the factory default layout there instead. So very straightforward. You can go back home this way if you want to, hop back into CarPlay, and then down the center stack, there are a few other buttons available, so you can hop into any of these options. But hopping back home, if you go into Setup, you've got Device Connections, and then Device Connections, you've got CarPlay that we're currently connected to. So if we disconnect for a second there, you can now see that the phone's available for either Bluetooth for phone, and then for audio instead. If we go Bluetooth prompts, you can mute prompts, play prompts, system information. That's where you're going if you wanted to change the name of the vehicle. So Ioniq 6 is the default, but you can select essentially whatever you want to with an additional pass key. Don't use 000, use something more challenging. And then you can go phone projection settings on top of that. So you can go split screen if you want to for Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. Actually, let me show you how that one looks. And then I think that is pretty much everything. Yeah, you've got the Bluetooth connections there again, but let's go through. So I want to show you the split screen. Perfect. Apple CarPlay is connected. Let's launch in. Oh, let's go back home, launch into CarPlay. And there you go. So you've got a little split screen. So if you wanted to connect to your phone to use audio, but you wanted to use factory navigation, you've got the flexibility to do it. If you wanted to listen to your podcast on Apple CarPlay and you wanted to use factory nav, or if you wanted to use nav on your phone and then go through audio this way, you've got the flexibility to be able to do it. I personally, though, am a bigger fan of having full screen. Phone projection. Oh, let's go Setup, Device Connections, projection settings, full screen. I'm a bigger fan of that full screen option, but you can go full screen or split screen, Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, or you can fully disable it. So if you want to be plugged into USB and not worry about CarPlay showing up, you can just disable it that way instead. But that's how you set up an iPhone inside of the Ioniq 6. Setting up an Android device is the exact same process. So if you weren't on this main screen, I mean, if we click on phone, I've got the iPhone connected right now. So we're going to go Setup, Device Connections, and then you just want to add in a new device.
Turn Bluetooth on from your device in order to search.
You can
On
find your
device,
vehicle.
Select the name that matches vehicle name on the screen.
Ioniq 6, pins match up, so we're going to hit OK there. Perfect. The phone is now connected over Bluetooth. And you can see that there are a few options available. So you can have one phone hooked up if you want to for phone calls, one for audio. You can kind of do a mix and match. So it's either Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, but you can kind of do a mix and match of these four. You can also do a press and hold to show who gets connection priority. So if you have two phones connected, you can essentially say who's getting connection priority there as well if you get incoming phone calls. If you hop back home, you can hop into your phone there. As you can see, it's asking for options, allow access to contacts.
Contacts download is starting.
No, it's not.
Phones
I said no to that one, so eventually it's going to say it failed. But I mean, obviously, if that's your vehicle, you can have that downloaded if you want to. If you have multiple phones connected, you can press there in order to swap.
Download was unsuccessful.
It's because I said no, but you've got the flexibility to say yes, like I said, if it's your vehicle. From there, setting up Android Auto is the exact same process as the iPhone. So you need a USB cable with that little data icon there, and it has to be the USB Type A. Plugging yourself in down the center, and then, do I want to access to messages? No, because again, not my vehicle. And then just plugging yourself in, and it should take a second there. Android Auto, let's hit next. And just a second, it should launch right in. 3, 2, 1, and haha, we are fully connected to Android Auto. So similar setup to the iPhone side of things to a degree. So you've got your current connection status and your time, your map, you've got podcasts there, different miscellaneous apps, and then your Google Assistant. So you can push that button to launch into your Google Assistant, longer press and hold on the steering wheel if you wanted to activate it that way instead. Then one nice thing, you can push the little map icon to go full screen Google Maps that are pinch to zoom. I love that about the Android side of things, is that it's pinch to zoom there. You can search for addresses. You can push the little gear icon there if you wanted to do certain things like avoid motorways, toll roads, ferries, and a few other things. I love that it's pinch to zoom. On the outside along the bottom, there's a little icon you can push to get to the split screen, or the little icon view there instead. Now, one thing to note is that this phone does have Waze installed. But I mean, as you can see there, Waze is not showing up as an available option. So if that's your situation where Waze is installed but it's not working, I've put together a little video that essentially explains how to actively use Waze inside the vehicle. So you can find that down in the description of this video. And very similar to the iPhone side of things, on your phone, if you search for Android Auto, you can go to Settings to Customize. So you've got a series of different options that are available, but we're looking for customizing the launcher. So, similar to the iPhone side of things, if you wanted to move some things around, you could just do a little bit of a drag and drop, but it's not dynamic like it was on the iPhone side of things. In order for these changes to take into effect, you just need to unplug, plug yourself back in, and it'll take a second. Android Auto is going to relaunch, and oh, incoming spam call. Isn't that nice? And then as you can see there, fully launched back in with all of the changes that we've made that have come into effect there. So very, very useful. And then, I mean, as you saw there, in order to get out, you can just do an unplug. If you go into phone projection, but if you go into your setup, device connections there, you've got both phones that are connected now over Bluetooth. So you've got the option of, as I mentioned, going either for your phone or for audio, for either or, do a kind of a mix and match if you want to, or you can delete the devices. So you could mark all if you want, hit delete, and let's delete all. Should take a second there. 1 and 2, and boom. And that's how you set up Android and iPhone devices inside of the Ioniq 6. You can also jump into your radio. So radio, you can jump between AM, FM, Sirius, AM, FM, Sirius XM, and then a series of other media options there too. So you've got Bluetooth, USB, sounds of nature. There are so many different options available. You can push this in order to be able to tune to the station you'd like. On Sirius XM, you can also jump into a few other things. Actually, let's go fuller screen there. But I mean, that's nice. You can go channel list if you wanted to see all of the available channels that are available. And that's the same thing with AM, FM. So if you're new to an area and you're not sure what stations are available, you just hop in, and then from there, you can update it if you want to. But these are all the stations based off of your geographic area. And then you can just easily press the star icon there. Let's go into our station list and pushing the star icon there in order to be able to add these things in as presets. So whatever station you'd like to, you can push that and it saves it under presets. And that's the same thing for Sirius XM as well. Let's add the channel in. So you can see there, we've added these channels in. You can do a drag and drop if you wanted to adjust it out instead. I like that. If you go channel list, presets, you can reorder or you can delete them. So if you're not a fan of a certain preset, you just select, delete, yes, and it's fully deleted the preset for us. Straightforward. And back. That's the basics of using radio. Like, there's not a ton of stuff to the radio itself, but I mean, it still is nice. You've got a lot of flexibility there. This is at AM, FM, Sirius XM. You can go back home if you wanted to. Go back into radio. You can push there if you wanted to. Turn the display off. You could enter a station manually that way instead. So if you have a station you wanted to listen to, you can push there to tune manually instead. So there's a tuning rocker down the center stack. You can reorder presets. Go into some advanced sound settings. So let's see, start up volume limiter. If you've got the volume cranked, you turn the car off, turn it back on. It's not going to be blaring at you, so it's going to be nice and low. Position, do you want it focused on the driver, people in the back, etc. Or you can kind of fine tune it instead. It's kind of neat. Tone settings, do you want to adjust your treble, mid-range, and bass? Let's center that out. I personally have found that treble up a point or two with bass cranked a little bit tends to give pretty good audio inside the vehicle. Options for the door. Do you want the vehicle to automatically lock or unlock in certain circumstances? On your key fob, do you want to press the unlock button twice to unlock? Do you want the doors to automatically unlock as you approach? How far open do you want the trunk to open up when you go to open it? Obviously, I think full open makes sense. And then the vehicle also has smart trunk and remote window control. So let's hop outside and I'll show you how those processes work. Taking a peek at the key fob for the Ioniq 6. So the back of the fob, not going to find anything exciting. Front side of the fob, there's the lock button, unlock button, remote start, Horner panic alarm as well. And then along the side, you've got trunk release, and then the buttons for the remote smart parking assistant. Lots of things. So let's start off first with being able to remote start. So you just push the lock button once, and then push and hold the circle button. You can see there, the remote start's now going. The screen is on. Once the vehicle is actually turned on, then you can use the remote smart parking assistant. So you can use these buttons in order to bring the vehicle forwards or backwards. So let's say if you needed to get in or out of a tighter space. See there, just a second. You have to be a little close for this to work. And just release. And you can go forwards with it too. So very useful if you need to get your vehicle in or out of tighter spaces. But I mentioned you do have to be fairly close for this to work. And you can see right inside of the center stack there. So the screen is showing us what's going on. Now, from there, you could just push and hold in order to turn the vehicle off. Let's do smart trunk first. So you're gonna make sure your vehicle's locked. And let's say if you're going grocery shopping, whatever the case may be, you gotta get about 10 to 15 feet away from the vehicle after you've locked for about 10 to 15 seconds at a minimum. And then let's say if you've got a handful of groceries, bags, kids, whatever the case may be, or you've just shopped at Costco and you've got way too many things, as long as you've got the key fob on you, you're just walking up to the back end. See there? You can push lock to stop it at this point, but smart trunk, such a cool feature. And then you can just push again in order to close. Now, there is one other option, and that's the option of using the key fob to roll the windows down. It's strictly down, not back up, but still useful feature. So all you're going to do is push and hold the unlock button. And then as the windows start to roll down, good. If you release it, it's going to pause it, but you just push and hold again in order to keep the process going. But the overall style is so neat. I love the wraparound there. Like how this kind of just goes through beautifully. And then here, you've got a little bit of ambient light. So the ambient light, you've got the flexibility of being able to customize it through the screen too. So if you wanted to be able to change, we go there, lights, ambient light, color, you've got the option of adjusting to any available color. So you can see there, changes it out very subtly. Looks really good later on at night, but that is so cool. And you're going to find the ambient light in different parts of the vehicle. But down the center stack there, you've got basics to get to your map, navigation settings, you can tune as well. So I guess, yeah, even that, tuning. So if we look at, let's go media for a second. You've got the option for AM, FM, Sirius, XM, and Bluetooth. USB is an available option. So if you had a USB stick with some MP3s on there, plug yourself in. And, is that even plugged in? Maybe? I never know. Okay, hold on. Oh yeah, there we go. Reading USB. Helpful if you read the screen. But while that's loading up, there are two different speaker choices that you're going to find. Two different speaker choices you're going to find inside of the Ioniq 6. So it's either going to be a 6-speaker setup or an 8-speaker Bose instead. This is the 8-speaker Bose, and you've got speakers along the pillars there, the door, second row. You've got speakers back there too. So let's go through because you've got different options. So we're going to go list. This is all the music I've got in the USB stick. Start off with something calming first. Okay, it's nice and relaxing, but let's go for something a little bit more rocky. And this is just coming right out of the microphone here. So there's no post-processing done to this audio whatsoever. Oh, that's kind of cool. Even dragging across in order to be able to adjust what part of the song you're in. That is so cool. I just noticed that one. All right, so let's do a little audio test.
Live life in these times, it feels like nobody's right, yeah. So I'ma figure out what else we succeed, and then invest all of my time into that and proceed.
The audio inside of the vehicle is great. And that's one nice thing about it being a sedan. It's lower profile, which means that the overall audio experience is just like a step above if it was a larger vehicle, but still those Bose speakers, really good. Down the center there, so you are push button start, obviously. Series of other options here. So you just push this button and look at this. It gives you other options. So you can go heated, ventilated first row seats for both the driver and for the passenger side. You can toggle any of these things on or off. So let's say if you're on there, off. So you push and hold this button. It shows you this option, searching for parking spaces. So all you're going to do is start driving, and then it's going to give you a few different options depending on what's available based off of where you are. So watch this. So it's got the option for a perpendicular park, which I'm not looking for, but it's got the option for both a parallel park and a perpendicular park. So using the park assist system inside the vehicle is straightforward. So you can do it from the outside or smart parking there. So we want to utilize it on the right side. So we're just going to push and hold, release the brake, and the vehicle is, in theory, doing everything for us. So it's backing up. Oh yeah, look at this. Look at this. It's controlling the steering wheel. It's controlling the gas, the brake. My feet are literally off everything. Amazing. Amazing. It's obviously a little bit easier for it because there's no vehicle behind, but even still, it's done that perfectly. It's moving us forward a tiny little bit there as well. Again, it's doing everything. And parking complete. The Ioniq 6 has the option for full park assist. And it's not even just parallel. I'm like spitting. I'm so excited. But it doesn't even have the option just for regular park assist. Watch this. We do push and hold again. And it's checking the space to see what's going on. It's recognized that we've been parallel parked. So now we can go either to the left or the right. I'm not going right. So let's go to the left. It's the same idea. So hands are off the wheel, off the brake, push and hold. From there, it should move me out a little bit. Ooh, you are, I was like, you are ballsy, fella. So from there, it's trying to help us get out of the spot. Look at that. Moving forward, and then it should prompt me to take over in just a second. There we go. So it's gotten us out of that space. And then from there, we're in drive. So can just continue the drive. Amazing. Such a cool feature. And then it also does have the option for perpendicular park. So let's try to find somewhere where we can do a little perpendicular park. All right, so we want to look for parking again. And it's going to shoot across and see what's available. Ideally, we're finding a perpendicular space, which there's one right next to me here. So let's see if it picks it up. Perfect. Perpendicular, smart park. We want the vehicle to do it for us inside. So from there, push and hold, release the brake, and the vehicle is doing everything for me. So it's pulling me forward a little bit. So you can see what it's doing right in the screen there. But from there, it's then backing me up. And all I'm doing is pushing and holding the button. You can hover over the brake if you want to, but I mean, the vehicle, very, very smart. Does take a little bit longer to complete, but I mean, it is doing a great job backing me into the space here. And it's doing everything. So all I'm doing is pushing and holding that little P button. Could you do it faster yourself? Yes, but where this really comes into hand, like where it comes in handy, I should say, is if you've got mobility issues. So the vehicle can easily adjust parking spaces for you there if necessary. So it does take a little bit, but like I said, if you've got mobility issues, hip issues, neck issues, whatever the case may be, you can just rely on the vehicle in order to perfectly park you in that lane and hold on, in the parking spot, I should say. Oh, takes a little bit to do. Again, backing up. And this should be the final adjustment that it makes here. And parking is completed. You're going to find a wireless charge pad in the vehicle, a few cup holders, and then all of your side controls. So typically you'd find that along the driver's side door, but just because of the way that the speaker is set up and how much space it needs for that quality audio, it shoots it across the side. So your unlock lock buttons, window controls, auto hold, and then killing off power to the rear windows. Rear windows and doors, I should say, so it locks it out. And there, you've got 2 USB Type-C power points, and they're just power points because you've just got that little charge icon there instead. And then you've got a nice tray underneath with some storage. But one thing that's missing, you see my sunglasses there, because overhead, not gonna, or even down low, like there are no sunglasses holders specifically inside the vehicle. It's one thing I think that Hyundai probably could have added in somewhere, but still, storage all over the place if you need it. But shooting up overhead, so you've got an auto-dimming rearview mirror with the option of programming in a garage door opener if you've got one at home. From there, your tow and SOS modes. Control your interior lights. Oh, that looks good. All your dome lighting, whether or not the lights come on with the doors open. And then this also has well, not a panoramic roof, a wide sunroof, I should say. So there are a few different ways that you can control it. If you just do a light push backwards, that's just going to open up the shade. And then from there, you could vent out by pushing up or close, and then a button press. In order to open it up. And that's the wide roof. So that's as far open as it's going to go. I mean, you got a little bug guard there, but it looks so neat on the outside too with the roof opened up. And then just, so I mentioned, you can do a light press if you just wanted to close, but if you do a hard press instead, it's not only going to close or open the roof, but it's going to close and open the shade simultaneously. So we're kind of like killing 2 birds with 1 stone there, which is kind of nice. You can see along the passenger side, you've got a little holy crap handle. Same along the driver. There's nothing on the outside. You've got a little ticket receipt holder on the inside. And then over top for your light. But still, nice that there's a vanity mirror and the light is always a nice touch. And this extends out. Oh yeah, that's going to block most of the sun that might be hitting your face. Oh, that's good. I love this though. I think that Hyundai has done a really good job on the interior of the Ioniq 6. When I was driving it back from picking it up, I'm like, I just think they did a great job overall. I would love to see a dedicated boost mode, but I mean, you still do have the option to go sport mode instead. If you wanted sportier performance, it unlocks the truest performance in the vehicle, but you can see how it affects the range though too. When you're in eco-conscious driving versus being in the sport mode, it affects it like a teeny little bit. But sport mode is useful for a bit of fun. We'll set the seat up. Yeah, so let's set the seat up the way that I would traditionally drive. And I'm going to do something different today. Let's go from the first row into the second. Oh. You'll hear it chiming at me just because the key's not in the vehicle. Actually, I'm going to do that one again. So getting into the second row of the vehicle. Great. I mean, I'm 6 feet tall. That wasn't too challenging by any stretch. But with the driver's seat set up for myself being 6 feet tall, well, inside of the second row here, I've got a great amount of knee space, great amount of foot space, and up overhead with me sitting fully upright. The top of my head is actually touching the roof. So if in order for me to comfortably sit in the second row, I'd have to slouch a little bit, but still, I mean, that's not bad. The seat's super comfortable. But for second row headspace clearance, I'd say that if you were like 5'10", you'd probably comfortably be able to sit in the vehicle, sitting fully upright. Outside of that, you're going to have to slouch. Not ideal. But if you've got kids, or like I said, if you've got shorter friends, family members, or like I said, kids, you've got all of the necessary anchor points there. And then the top tethers along all 3 seats. So you're at least covered off from that perspective. But you've got the same highlights that you saw along the first row. Maybe see it there? Teeny little bit of ambient light right along the door handles too. So neat. You've got your window controls, the option for heated second row seats. That's strictly on the outboard seats. So the middle seat here is never going to be heated. It's strictly going to be the outboard seats if your Ioniq 6 has this option. I mean, so many cool options here. Heated seats, like I said. You've got a little handle there, storage, pockets behind both the driver and the passenger side. And then down low, you've got some vent controls, a few USB power points, USB Type-C, strictly charge ports, and then a teeny little bit of storage down there too. Up overhead, there's a little handle, there's a light, and then there's a handle and a hook along the driver's side. Only other thing to point out is that in the seat, you're going to find a few cup holders built right in. The overall power that you're going to find inside of the Ioniq 6 is going to depend on which battery setup that you've got. And as always, rear wheel versus all-wheel drive. Because all-wheel drive gives you that extra front motor as well, which just kicks things up a notch. So at a very minimum inside of the Ioniq 6, you're looking at 149 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque. But when you get into this vehicle with the setup that it's got, so 77.4 kilowatt hour, along with the dual motor setup, so it's got the rear and the front, that pushes you up to an impressive 320 horsepower and 446 pound-feet of torque. And when you put your foot down, you're going. 0 to 100 test inside of the Ioniq 6, gonna go in a second after traffic goes. And gotta make sure in that sport mode that uses way more of the battery in comparison to the eco mode, but we gotta do it. I love how when you switch between those modes, it changes up what's going on there and then inside of the cluster screen. And we're going in 3, 2, 1. 100. It's so good. Oh, it's so good. I love the power that you're going to find inside this vehicle. It is a boatload of fun. Now, the downside, though, is that when you use sport mode all the time, you end up using up a lot of juice. So especially if you're the type of person where you gun it. If you're not gunning it and you're just lightly driving or you're occasionally using that sportier performance, you're going to get way better range. But if you're the type of person where you love to have fun and you're just gunning it like crazy, you will use up more charge. Not a ton, but you're going to use a few % more difference if you look at the eco mode compared to the sport mode instead. But I mean, there's no denying how incredibly fun the sport mode is at the same time. And it's just like that gut feeling that you get. If you've ever been on a roller coaster and it's like that feeling that you get in your stomach, 100% that's how it feels. It's honestly amazing at the same time. But one thing that I love, highway drive assist. So the vehicle's got a full lane center system, so lane follow assist. It keeps you perfectly balanced in your lane as you go. It is amazing. And another good feature is it's got lane change assist as well. So you can hit the turnstile to go left or right, and the vehicle's going to check to see if there's anybody on the left or the right side, whichever way you go. And then as long as you're safe, it's automatically going to change lanes for you. It is a really, really cool system that Hyundai's got here. So I'm going here. Do have to keep your hands on the steering wheel though, but it's perfectly changed the lanes for me and it's done it itself. Really, really useful. But this was a look at the 2024 Hyundai Ioniq 6. You can find all of the build details and links off to Hyundai Canada and USA down in the description. But if you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and until I see you next time, take care. The Ioniq. So if your EV's died, you need a boost. If you need to pop a tire, why would you want to pop a tire? It's stupid.